Welcome to the show. Show's log is 4/8/2020. Tonight's agenda, I would like to talk about security. This is going to be a multi-show topic because we're going to start breaking down different ways how we can protect ourselves in disaster situations or an SHTF scenario. So what is an operation security? Operation security, otherwise known as opsec, is an important part of keeping yourself and your belongings safe. And if you find yourself in a disaster situation, whether emergency or a SHTF situation, is an important part of keeping your home safe as well as your bug out shelter if you have one. This plan is to protect information, not your infrastructure. So what I mean by information is your day-to-day activities, interactions with other people. This is going to, when you talk with people you don't know about, it could potentially give out enough information that they can tell what you have at home, what you're willing to fight over. So we have to kind of think about that. I don't see too many topics out there on this kind of discussion. So it's one thing I definitely did want to kind of tie in with everything that's going on in the world as things start to develop and worsen across the world as far as economic standpoint, as far as this virus is concerned. If we start to see a food shortage across the world, who knows what type of animals will come out of the woodwork. So protecting yourself, your belongings, and your loved ones is, first priority. So let's kind of go into this. So the process will help you protect the following: information about who you are, what you are doing, what you have, what your plans are, and among other things. So A, this is going to be identification of crucial information. B, analyzing of threats. C, analyzing of vulnerabilities. D, assessment of risk. E, applications of operation security measures. We also need to understand the laws of this. So what I mean by laws is the rules, the way you talk in communities. So the first rule of operation security is that you don't talk about operation security. And the reason for that is because you don't want people knowing what you're planning, what you're doing, what you have. So you have to kind of mix things up. And the reason you don't want people knowing this stuff is because you don't know what the threat is. And so to be able to plan for that threat, you have to be able to judge and gather information about your surrounding and not necessarily allowing your surroundings gather the information on you. First rule or law of operation security is if you don't know the threat, how do you know what to protect? Second law, if you don't know what to protect, how do you know you are protecting it? And third law, if you are not protecting it, they win. So, Operation Security 101 for preppers process. These are going to be a 6-step process that we'll go through. First step, what do you have? Second step, what do you need to protect? Third step, who do you have to protect it from? Fourth step, what information would an adversary want to know? Step 5, what can they find out that they could use to piece it all together? Step 6, what could you do to protect those pieces of information that your adversary had gained? All right, let's break into step 1 here. What do you have? A good idea is to figure out everything that you have. Go through and inventory anything that's important. Prioritize certain items. Not everything that you have inside your house is really relevant to being important. I've gathered stuff up over the years that I could let go of pretty easily. So after that, figure out everything you have that you're willing to protect it or its cost, what it's going to cost to replace it. You got to get into step 2. What do you need to protect it? Or what do you need to protect? So prioritizing what needs to be protected. What could you live without? And the important to know the difference between what's priority and what's not is in a situation you could use the non-priority items as, let's say, like a dummy wallet. Say somebody is holding you up and you had two wallets on you. One was your dummy wallet that didn't have very much in it, and the other one did. You could handle that dummy wallet in the position of your good wallet so that they think that that's what's really all there. And that will help, with keeping your stuff protected. Who do you have to protect it from? Human threats from the first stages of disaster like that will come mainly from people who are potential threats normally. They'll take targets of opportunity, and there are a lot more opportunities in a SHTF scenario. As the nature of threats change, more opportunities present themselves. So, when people become more hungry, they're going to be looking for food. A person's natural reaction to survival is to do whatever is necessary. Some people might, become more aggressive. That's something we have to think about. So the opportunity presents themselves and people start more changing their priorities. Their priorities will start heading down the hierarchy towards more basic needs. The longer a survival situation lasts, the more danger from others will be presented. The next stage are the friendly threats. Basically the sheeple who either didn't prepare thoroughly. They run out looking for water immediately, food, power soon after that. They'll see your lights on and invite themselves in. Your family, your friends, your neighbors are going to be the worst offenders of this. This is where you stand in the window and stare out at them while drinking your ice-cold beer and go. Fools told you so. This is one of the reasons why opsec is so important while you are preparing. Now, I'm not saying that you should leave your family out in the woods. This guy that wrote this, he thinks that if in a situation you're going to be like that, but really, friends and family, those are the group that you're going to be protecting. So, at that moment, when the scenario happens, by that time people come around, you're going to be sharing resources with the group anyways. But I don't know how this guy really feels on that, but I feel some of his information that he gives is really good, but I wouldn't be drinking ice cold beer and going, you fools. I'd be going, what resources can we develop together? How can we create a more efficient community so that our friends and our families are not left behind? Because those are truly the people that we're here to protect anyways. So it's the other people that I would be concerned about. The ones that are trying to come take our stuff or trying to invade our homes. While it is important you're prepping, it does not do much good to stock up for a month. So that's kind of interesting. They doesn't do good to stock up for a month. I would say it's probably a good idea to have at least a month. But this guy, he has a lot of good information in these articles. I've read it before, but it's really hard for me to run through some of this stuff. For people, if a week into it, 6 or more join and don't bring anything to the table, these people may not be threats today, but giving their critical information now will empower them later. Your opsec should start the day you decide to be a prepper. Now, just because these people don't have anything to bring to the table, as a leader, or if you're bringing these people in, you are the leader of your community, of your group. So what you're going to want to do is help monitor and help deviate responsibilities across. I'm not saying be a complete dick about it, but every person has a value in it, and those people should be sharing if they're sharing with you, or if you're sharing with them. So responsibilities, if you're having to do certain, growing, gardening, and etc., every person within your group needs to have responsibility. They need to be responsible for their own well-being. So you're not just going to throw your family out on the street. You're just going to help them develop these responsibilities so they can take the right actions for themselves. The last stage is the gangs, the marauder stage. These are groups that are going to challenge other groups. It's going to challenge our groups in a SHTF situation. So that's why it's important that we have our communities set up. That's why we have our communities, being able to help protect one another. Because in that kind of scenario, you're not going to have enough security off a small 3-person family or a small 1-person. 1-person, a lone wolf, might be able to move in and out of these groups, but in the long term, they put themselves in a very dangerous situation because the larger number groups are just going to devour the smaller groups. And so that's why, as we develop our groups and develop our communities, we need to be thinking in a community mentality, how each one of us has a responsibility within the group to help provide to that group. These gangs and marauders could be the most dangerous in a SHTF situation, depending on their numbers and how hungry they may be. So when you're developing your communities, you have to also think about each person within your community. Do they have the potential of turning on you later down the road? You have to be very careful about who you let into your inner circle. Your friends and family can make also bad enemies if they're not on the same page. So when you're, in your communities and you're talking about, what is the plan of action, you have to make sure, even as a leader, you're listening and you're helping direct each person's responsibility so that it feels like everybody is involved, that everybody's idea is being heard, and that everybody's scenario that they're trying to live by is being met. So, as far as the leaders out there, really think about how your leadership skills need to be developed so when you have to get into your communities, what you're going to do. So step 3, what information would be an adversary want to know? So what I'm calling adversary could be potentially a spy, could potentially be somebody down the road that, thinking about needing more material or more food, whatever it may be. It would be, what do you have that they would want? Guns, ammo, stuff like that. It's stuff that you really shouldn't talk to other people about. Unless it's somebody within your close circle or your inner workings. Guns and ammo shouldn't be scattered across social media. That is the first place where people would look. So that's not a good spot to start. Next would be, how is it protected? They want to know what you're doing to safeguard your items. So, advertising that you got a new gun safe on social media is probably not the best idea. Combinations. What is the combination to your padlock? Probably something you want to keep to yourself. What's the combination to your safes? Probably something you want to keep to yourself. Common knowledge, common sense, but sometimes we may try to overdo something or try to impress people for certain reasons, so that we can feel connected to that one person, but we sometimes don't know how far that person is a spy or is that tick in your sleeve. So, and knowing who all knows the combinations. Is it your wife? Is it your oldest kid? Is it your neighbor? When you give people that kind of information, you're giving them a source of responsibility. And you want to make sure they are at that same level that they're willing to handle such responsibility, that they're not going to share it under stress. How else could they find the combinations? Combinations, when I talk about combinations, I'm not just talking about your safe, I'm not talking about your padlock, could be even your password for your computer. With the way our Internet of Things works now, I mean, everything is connected. Your bank accounts all over the internet, your information, your ID, everything is just scattered out there if you're not careful. When is it safe unprotected? Well, it should be under protection all the time. You should always be thinking about your information and how you're doing things. So you want to make sure that you're protecting your identity, protecting who you are, information about your lifestyle, everything like that should be protected all the time. Step 4, piecing it together, opsec indicators. 5 major characteristics that they're going to look for: signatures, associations, profile, contrast, and exposure. Signature is basically what causes something to stand out. How you interact and move about, that's why you should vary your routes when you go back to your bug out and bug in locations. Association is how one indicator is relative to another. Varying your patterns of direction and case would make it much more difficult to piece together your pattern of life and predictive actions. So what does that mean? So if you go to work every day, say 5:45, you take the same path to going to work every day? Do you stop and get coffee every morning? These are the patterns of what you're talking about. So what they can do is set up a timeline of what you do. They figure out when you leave your house, what direction you go, if you stop for that coffee, what time you're getting at work, what route you take it home. So, sometimes it's good to develop those patterns on where you change directions. Never take the same path twice sometimes. That's a good indicator to start, kind of preparing your mind to do. So a profile is a sum of several signatures. And remember, signature is the cause of something that stands out. So if you do continuous things that stand out to a person, that is going to be your profile. So like if you're heading to a water source, how often you're running to that water source in a SHTF situation. Sometimes people can put these things together, pinpoint what you're doing, follow you at that certain instinct to directions, and they can do that every 3-4 days and know where you're at during those times. So they would be able to know what's there and what's not. So contrast is difference in behavior and pattern that has been established. This one is key, and one because people don't usually plan this in as part of their opsec measures. If you do the same thing day after day, it's expected that you'll continue doing it. It becomes a pattern, a repetition. So most of us, we develop a natural timeline throughout our day, what we're doing. Each one of us wakes up, drinks a glass of water, goes and brushes their teeth. These patterns. It almost becomes instinct to do so. These things can, have people that can gather information out from it, basically what it does. So creating the contrast would be what you do outside of that. So if one day you're, instead of getting coffee, you go down and get a donut. Well, that's the contrast to your coffee. So now they know that there's something new going on. Exposure. Exposure is how long and how frequent an indicator seems. If you do something for hours, it's likely to be noticed. Also, if you do things every day, even for just a few minutes, it's likely to be noticed. The more exposure an indicator has, the easier it is to tie it to a pattern. Put into a profile and associate it with another indicator. If you need to do something on a regular basis, change how you do it, where you do it, and when you do it. Step 7. What could you do to protect those pieces? Action and control. The object here is to eliminate any indication of vulnerability to enemy explanation. Essentially, this is changing what you do to hide what you're doing, who you are doing it with, and what you used to do it with. This is the defense part of your plan. Look at what you do, where you do it, who you do it with, what else you do it, when you do it, and how often you do it. Countermeasures. The objective of the countermeasure is to disrupt the enemy from gathering information on you by changing or camouflaging the indicators. So, sometimes it's good to change your location, what you're getting coffee. Pick a couple spots so you can go and get different coffee spots. Change up what day you're going to bring in donuts to the office. Things like that. That's just training your mind to think, to get rid of some of the patterns. Counteranalyst. The stuff can be pretty sneaky. Basically, you're running a campaign against the guy who is sitting down and looking at what their collectors have brought them. It's a chess game, part of opsec process. So, if somebody in a SHTF scenario happens, or if a group would send out scouts or disaster situation, and you have these people that run out there and they try to steal from other people's stores, yourself, or whatever, they might send a scout to go look at the area first before they just go there and do it. You could pick up on that. Look for something out of the ordinary. If you see a vehicle in your neighborhood in these kind of scenarios that you wouldn't ordinarily recognize, pay attention to it. If it comes back or sits for long periods of time, pay attention to it. So that's kind of, analyzing as these things think. I'm not trying to be paranoid by any means. It's just a process in which we develop so that we can hit these situations and protect the things we have. I'm also going to be uploading some of this document up there. I used this guy that developed this. He is a former intelligence officer, I believe. Hold on, right here. He goes by greywolfsurvival.com, 411, and how to prepare for opsec planning. He's a counterintelligence agent, and he developed some of these courses. Pretty good read. I'll be adding it to the Facebook and the website for that. A really good read. Next episode, we're going to talk about, developing a routine security check. And the reason I say routine security check, because every night before you shut down for the night, you should be doing certain things to make sure that your property, your area, your home is good to go before you go down to sleep. And we're going to break into that next episode. We might do an episode in a few days so we can keep this idea of the security going. We have a couple other members that are doing a really good job on other topics. Lyle is posting a lot about gardening. If you have any questions behind that, you can hit him. I know a couple of our members that are really big into gardening. So if you have any question about gardening, go ahead and post it on the Facebook group. We also have Joel Williams that is doing area studies. And he's going to be releasing over a period of time different articles, different thoughts, process that you can do to help develop these area studies for your bug out locations. You can spend a ton of money on bug out equipment, but if you don't know what you're going into, it really doesn't do you any good. You don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge base to be able to perform and survive if you don't know what you're surviving or you're pertaining to. So, well, that's tonight's show. Thanks for, start thinking about certain things, okay, about security, long-term food sources, and knowledge intelligence on where to go with it. So, have a good night.